The history of the Bahamas begins around 500 after Christ, when the indigenous Lucayans arrived on the islands from South America via the Greater Antilles. They lived in small communities, practiced fishing, agriculture, and craftsmanship, and maintained a spiritual relationship with nature and their ancestors. For several centuries, their society remained stable and largely free of major armed conflicts. A decisive turning point occurred in the year 1492 after Christ, when Christopher Columbus landed on one of the islands of what is now the Bahamas during his first transatlantic voyage, naming it San Salvador. This marked the first documented encounter between Europeans and the Lucayan people. In the decades that followed, nearly all Lucayans were enslaved by the Spanish and forcibly transported to other islands, especially Hispaniola. Disease, forced labor, and violence led to the near-total destruction of the indigenous population within only a few decades. By around 1500 after Christ, the Bahamas were virtually uninhabited. For more than a century, the islands remained largely neglected. Only in the 16th century after Christ did English settlers begin to show interest in the Bahamas. In the year 1624 after Christ, English colonists established the first permanent settlements. Due to their strategic location, the islands soon became a center of trade, navigation, and piracy. Especially in the late 17th century and early 18th century after Christ, the Bahamas, particularly New Providence, gained notoriety as a refuge for pirates such as Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard. In order to reassert control, Great Britain declared the Bahamas a crown colony in the year 1718 after Christ. Piracy was systematically suppressed, and British colonial administration established a more stable order. During this period, African people were brought to the islands as enslaved laborers, primarily to work on cotton plantations, which proved only moderately successful due to poor soil conditions. In the year 1833 after Christ, the British Empire abolished slavery. For the Bahamas, this marked a profound societal transformation. Formerly enslaved people now constituted the majority of the population, while many plantation owners left the islands. Throughout the 19th century after Christ, the economy stagnated and poverty affected large segments of society. In the early 20th century after Christ, the Bahamas temporarily benefited from the smuggling of alcoholic beverages during Prohibition in the United States of America, which lasted from 1919 to 1933 after Christ. After this period, tourism increasingly became the most important economic sector, and the expansion of infrastructure, hotels, and ports shaped the modern development of the islands. Politically, power remained in the hands of a small white elite for many years. Only in the middle of the 20th century after Christ did a gradual process of democratization begin. In the year 1966 after Christ, the Bahamas achieved internal self-government. In the year 1973 after Christ, they gained full independence from the United Kingdom while remaining a member of the Commonwealth of Nations. The first prime minister of the independent nation was Lyndon Pindling, who played a decisive role in shaping the modern state. In the decades following independence, the Bahamas developed into a relatively prosperous island nation whose economy depends heavily on international tourism and the financial sector. At the same time, new challenges emerged, including social inequality, environmental problems, and vulnerability to hurricanes and climate change. Especially in the early 21st century after Christ, rising sea levels and extreme weather events became central political and social concerns. By the year 2026 after Christ, the Bahamas are a parliamentary democracy, with a diverse society shaped by African, European, and Caribbean influences. The history of the islands is characterized by radical ruptures, from indigenous culture to colonial exploitation, slavery, and piracy, and finally to independence and modern statehood. Despite ongoing challenges, the Bahamas today understand themselves as a sovereign nation with a strong cultural identity and a living awareness of their complex past.